When rancher Jack Turner walked into the government wild horse auction on a cold February morning in Nevada, he had no intention of buying anything. Came only as a favor to his neighbor, Ethan Moore, who wanted help hauling home a mare for his daughter. Jack planned to watch, lend a hand, and head back to his 30,000-acre ranch in the northern Nevada desert. But life has a way of surprising even the most stubborn men. For 12 years, Jack had run the Twin Canyons Ranch, land he'd scraped together enough to buy after years of debt and sweat. At 35, he had built the place into a modest but stable cattle operation. He knew horses well, his late father had been a trainer, but these days he owned only a handful of geldings for ranch work. Horses were expensive luxuries he couldn't afford to keep for sentiment's sake. The Bureau of Land Management auction was crowded that morning with pens full of captured Mustangs. Their terror was palpable. Wild eyes, nostrils flaring, hooves churning up dust. Jack hated watching it, the spirit of freedom reduced to numbers on a clipboard. He was just about to leave when a commotion near one of the pens caught his attention. At the far corner stood a 6-month-old foal, trembling so hard his ribs showed through a dull, patchy brown coat. His oversized head and spindly legs marked his youth, but what stopped Jack cold was the terror in the animal's dark eyes. One handler jabbed at the foal with a sorting stick. "Come on, you little devil. We ain't got all day." The baby horse let out a sound, part whinny, part scream, that Jack had only ever heard from animals in unbearable distress. Before he knew it, he had swung over the fence. "Easy. Let me try," Jack said. The handler, annoyed but willing to step aside, watched as Jack approached slowly, murmuring in the same low tones his father had once used with frightened colts. Up close, the foal's condition looked even worse. Malnourished, scarred with rope burns, hooves cracked in ways that didn't match wild range terrain. They looked like hooves worn down by pavement, something no Mustang should ever encounter. Jack stretched out a hand. "Poor little guy, what happened to you?" To his surprise, the brown foal sniffed his fingers and stepped forward, as if he recognized safety. Guiding him to the sale ring took patience, but the foal clung to Jack's side as though he had finally found a protector. "Lot 312, the auctioneer barked. "A 6-month-old colt from Pine Creek Range. Starting bid, $25. Silence. No one wanted a scrawny foal that would take months of costly feed. Buyers wanted strong, ready-to-train animals. Jack felt the colt pressing against his leg. Before he could stop himself, he raised his hand. $25. "Sold to Jack Turner," the auctioneer called, relieved to move on. Ethan gave him a look that said, "What the hell are you thinking?" But Jack hardly noticed. Something about the foal nagged at him, something that whispered this little horse carried more than scars. Loading him into the trailer was surprisingly easy, as though confinement meant safety. Now the ride back to Twin Canyons, the foal pressed close to Ethan's new mare, comforted by her presence. At the ranch, Jack's foreman, Hank Dawson, eyed the colt skeptically. "Boss, that little guy looks like he's been dragged through hell. You sure he's worth the trouble?" "Maybe not," Jack admitted, watching the colt pace the corral. "But sometimes an animal chooses you, and you don't get to say no." He named the foal scout, Dr. Emily Carter, the local vet, confirmed Scout's malnutrition and stress. "Time, food, and care will fix this. But those rope burns and hoof wear, they don't come from open range." Jack frowned. "So where do they come from?" "Hard surfaces. Concrete. Asphalt. My guess. He spent time in captivity. Maybe even theft. People rustle wild horses sometimes, haul them in trailers across states." That idea gnawed at Jack. Scout wasn't just scared, he was traumatized. Over weeks, Scout recovered. His ribs vanished under muscle. His brown coat took on a healthy shine. He followed Jack around the corral like a loyal dog, but certain things set him off. The sound of helicopters, popping noises like gunfire, and strangest of all, black SUVs. White trucks never bothered him, but dark vehicles sent him into blind panic. Hank noticed first. "Boss, that colt ain't just remembering pain. He's remembering what he saw. Horses can learn fear by association. He's been near gunfire, low-flying choppers, men in black trucks. Feels to me like he witnessed something." The thought chilled Jack. Could a foal have stumbled across a criminal operation in the wilderness? 3 months later, Jack was cleaning Scout's hooves when he found something sharp embedded deep in the sole of a rear foot. After careful work, he pulled out a small electronic device, metal, plastic, and a stub of antenna. Jack froze. A tracker. The realization hit hard. Someone had deliberately implanted a GPS unit in a wild foal. But why? Sheriff Daniel Hayes examined it grimly. Jack, you may have just tripped over something big. We've suspected smugglers using remote desert routes. Using wild horse herds as moving camouflage? That's genius and illegal. Federal testing confirmed the worst. The device had transmitted coordinates for nearly 2 years. Scout's herd had unknowingly mapped remote trails perfect for smuggling narcotics. The smugglers had been piggybacking on Mustang's natural movements. Worse, the tracker was still active, which meant criminals knew it had been removed and where it was now. Jack's ranch. DEA agent Sofia Ramirez warned him, Jack, these people protect their business with bullets. If they think you can expose them, you're a target. Jack looked at Scout grazing in the corral. The little brown horse had trusted him with his life. Could he do any less? What do you need me to do? He asked. The ranch transformed overnight. Federal agents hid motion sensors, cameras, and rifles in the hills. Jack went about chores under constant surveillance. Scout grew restless, sensing the tension. Then, one May night it came. The hum of rotor blades, searchlights sweeping across the ranch. Dark figures rappelling from a helicopter-armed men moving like professionals. Scout screamed in his corral, hooves hammering the ground. Gunfire erupted. Windows shattered as Jack ducked inside his house. Outside, agents engaged the intruders in a fierce firefight. The barn where Scout was housed was the attackers' focus. They wanted their investment back. But Ramirez's team had set the trap. When smugglers breached the barn doors, hidden agents cut them down in a coordinated ambush. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The smugglers who weren't dead were in cuffs. Their helicopter sat crippled in a nearby field. The raid cracked open a smuggling empire worth hundreds of millions. Dozens of trackers were later found in wild herds across Nevada. Innocent hikers who had vanished were now believed victims of the same ruthless network. Scout, the scrawny unwanted foal, had been the key to bringing them down. Federal compensation secured Twin Canyons Ranch for years. But for Jack, money mattered less than the sight of Scout healthy now, his brown coat shining in the desert sun, his eyes bright with trust. Months later, Dr. Carter called with news. Some of Scout's herd was being released back into the wild. Would Jack like to bring Scout to see them? At Pine Creek Range, the trailer door opened. Scout stepped into the desert air, ears pricked. A distant drumming of hooves grew louder. Over the ridge came a band of Mustangs led by a mare, Jack recognized from BLM records. Scout's mother. The reunion was pure joy, noses touching, whinnies echoing off the canyon walls. But then Scout turned back. He trotted to Jack, pressing his muzzle into the rancher's chest, torn between two worlds. Finally, he made his choice. Both. Scout ran with his herd by day, but each night returned to Jack's camp, bridging wildness and home in a way that honored both sides of his life. Jack watched him dance in the fading sun, the brown foal nobody wanted who had toppled an empire. He thought of the chain of events, how compassion had led to justice, how saving one frightened animal had saved many lives. Sometimes the smallest acts carry the weight of destiny. Sometimes the wildest hearts hold the bravest secrets.